What's up YouTube? So the Raiden Shogun is having her second rerun in patch 3.3, second half of patch 3.3, and this is a detailed guide and review of how to use her general strength in the meta, her best teams, artifacts, talents, etc. So enjoy. Skipping over Raiden's basic attacks because they are non-impactful, her E ability, Transcendence Baleful Omen, spawns a Electro Eye as well as a circle around your active character. And whenever you attack with any character on your party, doesn't matter what type of attack it does, every about 0.9 seconds an instance of AoE electro damage, a single hit of AoE electro damage, will occur on the enemy you are attacking. A major part of Raiden's kit is the resolve stack gaining thing. Now whenever any other party member other than Raiden uses their burst, Raiden gains some resolve, which is shown by the circle around the character when Raiden uses her E. You can see how much resolve Raiden has by just looking at that circle. The more costly the bursts that are used, the more resolve stacks Raiden gains, and the more damage Raiden gains on her burst per resolve stack. Raiden's E ability can be used in a variation of scenarios. The one biggest one is in the Raiden Eula team, where she can easily be used with Eula as a super conduct support, and also in a Hyper Bloom team where you can stack EM on Raiden and you can easily get some Hyper Blooms on the enemy. But most of the time, Raiden's bread and butter of her kit will be her burst, the secret art Muso Shinsetsu. Now this is a single hit of AoE electro damage followed by a stance change from being a polearm user to a sword user, where she has her own separate attack string and she does a separate multiplier of damage that is also known as burst damage. This is not like, say, Sino's burst, where inside of Sino's burst you use his normal attacks because it's a totally different scaling, similarly to Child's elemental skill, where he's not using his normal attack scaling, but rather his elemental skill scaling. So Raiden uses her elemental burst scaling in this form. This is important to note because some abilities that relate to normal attack talents, such as Child's Ascension passive, as well as Beidou's burst, will not work with Raiden's elemental burst. As for talent level up priority, your number 1 should be your elemental burst, and number 2 should be your elemental skill. I recommend bringing up your burst to at least talent level 8 and your skill to at least talent level 6, and you can keep your normal attack as talent level 1. As for Raiden's best teams, she has a few teams. The first one I recommend is Rational Team, the Raiden National Team, which is with Raiden, Xingqiu, Shengling, and Bennett. This is the best single target national team for free-to-play players because Xingqiu's damage is pretty good at free-to-play levels, and Shangling is one of the best characters for free-to-play players as well. And Raiden can help funnel back energy to the rest of her characters, and you can put a high damage weapon like the Dragon's Bane on Shangling because Raiden helps with the energy problems that Shangling usually has. The second team I recommend, like I said before, is the Eula Raiden Hypercarry team. If you have Eula, then the Eula Raiden team is also very good at free-to-play levels. Though, in my opinion, Rational is still better. But if you want content, if you want a team with Raiden that can clear multiple phases and does not have too many energy problems, then Eula and Raiden can be a pretty good option for you. Other than that, Raiden does have a few options, such as Raiden Hyper Carry, which is decent for free-to-plays, but for Raiden Hyper Carry, I would recommend going for C6 Sara, and if you have C6 Sara, you probably have C2 Raiden, and if you have C2 Raiden, Raiden Hyper Carry is probably the best team on your account. But if you do not have C6 Sara and you have a C0 Raiden, I would not recommend to build Raiden Hyper Carry. Other than that, Raiden has a Hyper Bloom team, but I would not recommend actually playing the Hyper Bloom team, though she is technically the best Electro option for that team. I would rather use Raiden in a Rational team, or in a Raiden Eula team, or a Raiden Hyper Carry team. So I can just use Kuki Shinobu, who can also provide some decent support. I can do almost as well as Raiden in that team, because Raiden cannot provide her energy generation to the team in that team. So it's a good team and technically the best Hyper Bloom team in the game, but I still would not recommend it for that reason. That being said, Raiden's flexibility is a major upside for her. All of her teams are at least top tier teams, but they're not the best teams in the game. But she can be slotted on in any team as an Electro sub DPS and as a burst DPS just to let your team regain its energy, which is a major upside for Red. That being said, Raiden is not best in slot for many teams. The only team she's best in slot for is the Rational team, which is the best single target national team, and the Raiden Eula team, which is great for burst nukes. But the Rational team is not the best single target damage team in the game because Yoimiya and Hu Tao exist, and in AoE content it's not the best national team by a long shot because Child National, Ayato National, all of those can outdo it. And on top of this, Raiden being Electro, she probably will not have that many opportunities to synergize with future characters, even if they are Dendro, because putting EM on Raiden sacrifices a decent amount of her burst damage. Another main downside for Raiden is that she relies on Bennett for a lot of her teams. The Rational team, Raiden Hyper, Raiden Eula, all of those rely on Bennett to draw out Raiden's full potential because her attack stat by base is pretty low. So she really likes to have Bennett in the party, which is not the best if you already have a Bennett on one side of the abyss. Say you're running like Yoimiya on one side of the abyss, or you have a Bennett taken for that team. You can't run Raiden in that abyss, which has been happening to me quite often because I run Child National on one side and I usually use Aika Frieza on the other. Even though Raiden is a very solid DPS character, I can't use her in the Abyss because both of my team slots are taken up. That being said, I think my general perspective of her in the meta is pretty positive. I do think she's one of the better DPS characters in the game, up there with characters like Ayaka and Ganyu. This is mostly because her damage inside of her burst is very solid. It's similar to how much damage Xiao and Scaramouche can do in their burst. But on top of this, she can help with energy regeneration for the entire party, which those two other DPS characters cannot. And also her single target and her AoE damage is pretty good. Her charge attacks have very good AoE, and on top of that, she is one of the easiest DPS characters to use because of her easy energy regeneration and just in general how non-complex of a character she is to use. A very big positive for Raiden that I would like to cover is her weapons. The catch is the best free-to-play option for her, and it's free for everybody to get. That being said, it does take a lot of farming, but it is a very solid weapon for her. But this does come with a few caveats, which is you can only have one catch, and the catch is the best in slot for a lot of polearm users, such as Ling, who is also one of the best characters in the game. So, she'll be fighting for the catch with a lot of your other characters. That being said, she is probably the best character to use a catch because Ling can use other weapons, so that's fine. And the catch does very similar damage to a R1 Engulfing Lightning when it is at R5, which is very fantastic to see coming from an FTP weapon. Last but not least, I'm covering her artifacts. The Emblem of Severed Fate is her best in slot artifact. Now, I recommend going for an attack percent goblet and an energy recharge or attack percent sands depending on your stats. If you have over 260 ER without an energy recharge sands, I'd say to go for an attack percent sands, but to get to that margin, you should go for a energy recharge sands. An electro damage goblet is okay if you have over 2k attack with an attack percent goblet, but the results are very similar, and in some cases even the attack percent goblet could do better because of Raiden's low attack percent stat and because of the extra damage bonus she gains from her burst. On top of this, the emblem is one of the best domains to farm because of how many characters can use the emblem of Severed Fate. Any sub DPS, off-field damage dealer, whatever character can use it. On top of this, the Shimonama Reminiscence is also a very good set for other characters like Scaramouche and Yoimiya, and its 2-piece bonus can help out a lot of characters with its 18% attack similar to the Gladiator's finale. So, what is my final verdict on Raiden? Should you avoid her? Should you consider her? Should you build pity? Or should you full on go for her and spend all your primos? In my opinion, you should spend all your primos and try to go for her. She's one of the best DPS characters in this game, and if you do not have her, you will not regret getting her.